So we live in the Gulf Coast on the southwest-ish area, Venice, Florida, and we've been to pretty much all the cities from Tampa down to Naples. And we recently just made a trip from Miami all the way up to Jupiter. So what we want to do in this video is break down the biggest differences we noticed in the southwest and southeast coasts of Florida, and we're getting started right now.
If you're looking to move to the Venice, Sarasota area, make sure to call, text, or email us. I am a local realtor here. My information will be in the description box below.
Phone number is 941-221-1897. Call or text at any time. We're always going to have your best interest and happiness in mind when moving to the area. So, what did you think about that East Coast action?
I mean, I liked it to go on vacation. It's perfect. For vacation, I was like, you know, like we're on a quieter, on the quiet coast, I guess we could say. Yeah. It's pretty quiet, and going to the Miami area, like we wanted to go because of the big city and, you know, experience and do different things. So on that aspect, I love it. To live there, I don't think I could live there.
Yeah, and not to misrepresent anything, because we do get some busier roads and things like that in, especially like Sarasota, Tampa.
But not to the scale of Miami.
Yeah,
area.
and even like the main road in Venice, you know, like Tamiami Trail, 75 going on there. But yeah, it's definitely not on that scale, and definitely there's quite a few differences. Like, it's not just like, oh, beach town. No, there's a pretty stark difference in East Coast versus West Coast in the feel of the cities. Not just with the traffic, but also kind of some of the other details we're going to get to in a second. But I think if you're looking to like maybe vacation or even move here, which is what a lot of this channel is about, is, you know, kind of trying to help you figure out where you want to move in Florida, you definitely want to visit both. You don't want to just be like, oh, okay, I looked up on Zillow or niche.com or whatever. Here's the crime rate and here's the school rating and this, and that. And okay, I'm going to go here versus here. You should probably go in person because the feel is different.
Yeah, and the other thing too, it's like when you look up information on niche.com, it'll tell you maybe a population of 20,000 people, but these cities are just like so close together that it does not feel like a population of 20,000 people. Like here in Venice too, it's the same thing. It's pretty similar in all of Florida. So just because you see a population of 20,000 people doesn't mean that that city is going to be a small little town. Like, it's just part of a big area.
Right. So yeah, like she said, Venice, 20,000 people, but that doesn't include South Venice, which there's no separation really.
Yeah.
It's all one city. That's probably got its own population of, I don't know, 10, 20, 30,000.
Yeah. Venice Gardens has a population of like 7,000, but Venice Gardens, South Venice, and Venice, City of Venice are like all close together. So.
Yeah, it's probably more accurately, like if you're gonna include all those, it's like 50, 60,000 probably. So just to give you an idea, like when you're looking up some of these things online, yeah, you can't just like look at it and be like, oh, it's a small town. It could be, and that's the other thing. Like, we lived in Orlando, and in certain little, you know, cities, it does feel quieter. Like these different areas will, you know, it might feel quiet. Again, that's why you got to go there to visit in person. But we're here to give you the information that you can get online. One thing I think to note, that's one of the biggest things for a lot of people that come, you want to come to Florida for your sunrises or your sunsets. Well, you're not going to get sunset on the water in the East Coast. You're going to get sunrise, versus on the Gulf Coast, you're going to get sunsets, not sunrise, on the water. And that's a thing a lot of people like to do here, is go to the water and watch the sunset. And there's lots of different places you can do that: beaches, piers, jetties. Yeah.
And another thing to note, since we're talking about water and beaches, is the Gulf Coast, well, most of Sarasota County, which is where we live, the parking is free, so you don't have to pay anything to go to the beach, which is a big deal.
With the exception of Inglewood,
Charlotte County.
Yeah, but just about everything else, yeah.
But the Sarasota side of Inglewood, that's also free. On the other coast, you have to pay for parking, and that was like a big one for us, because Pompano was like $4 an hour.
Yeah, I was just like, wow, I would think really long and hard if I really want to go to the beach that day.
Like, you have to live close if you want to be able to enjoy, you know, the beach, the pier area, because it's beautiful.
Oh, it's very nice.
But do you really want to pay $4 an hour every time you go? Because you're not just going to stay an hour.
Yeah. And I think a lot of them, the way they worked it out, though, was like you could pay for 1 hour or 2 hours, and if you paid for the 2, you just got the whole day. So it's their way of just making you pay for all day parking, I think, because it's so expensive that you might as well. But yeah, still, it's just like crazy because yeah, pretty much all Sarasota County it's free parking. I know in Clearwater it's not. St. Pete, I think it's not either. But you still have to pay for some of the parking in Gulf Coast. But it just seems like it's not as crazy as a lot of those more like southeast coast cities.
And you're still able to find free parking.
Some of the cities we were in the Atlantic. I mean, granted, it didn't help. We were there on a Friday evening and a Saturday when we were checking out these areas, so it was probably like peak time.
Yeah.
But it was hard to find parking in a lot of these areas, downtowns. Not all, but some, but especially by the beaches was definitely more difficult.
Yeah, like some I think Del Rey was it Del Rey?
Yeah, Del Rey.
Del Rey, we wanted to get out and explore the little downtown area and we couldn't find parking, so we just gave up. Boca Raton, that was a really nice downtown area.
Yeah, and their beach was technically a different city, and there wasn't a lot of parking there. Pompano was decent, but it was expensive. And then Deerfield was pretty decent too, as far as being able to find parking. Again, the time of day, I think we were there earlier on Friday, and then going into the late afternoon, it got, I think, progressively worse, and then on Saturday it was pretty bad. Yeah, which that's not a thing that doesn't happen here either.
Yeah.
Like Sarasota, at Siesta Key, they have a huge parking lot, and it's free, but it's also crazy hard to get a spot there.
Unless you go there like really early in the morning or like really late in the afternoon, then someone, as someone's leaving, like they'll actually like flag you down, like, hey, I'm leaving, you can park here, because you're not going to find parking otherwise.
Yeah. Venice, Inglewood, they can both get busy in peak seasons. Hard to find parking too. Generally, I feel like though, maybe it's because we're locals and we know like these little different spots we can go to park, but I find it not as hard in Venice to find parking. And then, yeah, Clearwater, St. Pete, generally probably going to be a little bit busier overall. Just depends on the time of day.
With the actual beaches, Siesta Key, I think, is always going to be my favorite, just to put that out there, because of the sand, and there is free parking, a lot of free parking, and a lot of sand. So you have a lot of room for all these people that come here. But I would say I really like the beach in Miami Beach because it's kind of like a boardwalk where you can roller skate or you can walk or go for a run. So I think that's like really cool because you can hear the waves, you can get the breeze, and it's a really nice touch, which we don't really have.
Yeah, and it's also well shaded. They have a lot of like, trees and shrubs and stuff on both sides in the building, so you still have a good shade even when it's hot. That's definitely a unique feature that I don't think any other city really has, at least not on that level. Clearwater has a kind of a thing like that, but it's not to that level. And yeah, that stands out. I wish more cities would do something like that. I think one other thing to talk about, we haven't really been, it's not there anymore, and we'll see what happens after the hurricane. But Fort Myers Beach was kind of a one-of-a-kind that way too, having everything right by the water, the actual downtown, but then you also saw the damage that can happen from that.
Yes.
But as far as the beaches as a whole, there's definitely a very big differences too, as far as the water, the sand,
the color.
The sand, like you said, Siesta Key is super fine. You got that up in Clearwater, that super fine sand. The Atlantic beaches are generally, I'd say, all like decent to above average sand, and then here it's like you get the really nice sand, but then you come to Venice or Inglewood and a lot of people don't like the sand, but then you get the shark teeth and the seashells. You also have the differences in the waves. Typically you're going to get more waves on the Atlantic coast versus the Gulf. It's kind of hit or miss. It could be super calm or you could get some big waves.
Yes. Another important thing for a lot of people is shopping. I think the Atlantic coast has a lot more shopping that we do here on the Gulf Coast. It does feel like there is shopping everywhere.
Yeah.
Not just like in the downtown areas. Like here I feel like mainly downtown areas, and then you'll have like shopping centers. There is like pretty much everywhere.
Yeah. I think, I mean, down by Fort Myers and Naples, they do have like, their malls and stuff like that. And in Sarasota, the UTC mall, and then that whole shopping center. But yeah, just within each city on the Atlantic coast, it seemed like there was just more options. And I mean, I guess it's hard to really compare the sizes of the cities. They did feel a little bit bigger, so that's probably part of it. But yeah, it feels like there's just a little bit less in a lot of these smaller towns like we're in, like in Venice, Northport, well, I guess Northport's not a beach town. Inglewood, you know, there's more of that smaller city with less shopping versus Atlantic. Like, good luck finding a city that doesn't have a lot of shopping.
Yeah.
It just doesn't really seem to exist.
On that downtown tangent, we visited a city that I think it was one of our favorites.
Yeah, I
like
think
top 2.
we're gonna have to make a video on our like ranking our downtowns, because this one has 2 of them
Yes.
that I think are
Very close.
in the running for being the like some of the best.
Yes, and this is West Palm Beach. Technically West Palm Beach and Palm Beach. Palm Beach, it's a beautiful little island, and they have this amazing downtown.
Reminds me of Naples a little.
Yeah,
kinda.
It's very walkable, very upscale.
Yes.
And then you cross the bridge and you're in West Palm Beach, and they have more of this, I don't even know how to explain
It's sort of urban feeling, but upscale,
Yeah.
and I don't know. It's a very unique downtown.
It is, and to have those two, like to have 2 downtowns within driving distance of each other, it's amazing to me.
Yeah, that definitely. And
Lots of shopping.
Boca Raton stood out to me too.
Yes.
Just overall shopping, and then they had like this kind of town center shopping area that was like lots of parking spots, pedestrian friendly. It's like almost like a fake downtown in a way, but
Yeah.
it was very new, nice, kind of upscale, I guess you could say. And
one thing that stood up about Boca Raton too is that a lot of beach towns, they're very narrow, like the streets are going to be very narrow.
Yes.
Boca Raton was like pretty wide.
Yeah,
the
roads
walking, the roads, everything. So
Yeah.
like I thought that was really nice, because
Yeah.
then it doesn't feel as dangerous when you're driving and, you know, on top of each other almost.
yeah, we were super impressed with Boca Raton and West Palm Beach. Of all the cities, I mean, some of the other ones have more of that kind of small town feel,
Yes.
like maybe you're looking for like out of like a Venice on the Gulf Coast, or Inglewood on the Gulf Coast. But yeah, those cities are really, really nice. You know, for those, I think you almost have to compare them more to like your Sarasota or your Naples or something like that, Fort Myers.
Let's talk about crime.
Well, the Atlantic is terrible. No, I'm just kidding. It's not terrible, but I'd say as a whole, and again, it's going to depend on the city, so we can't just brush this in broad strokes, but there's going to be a little bit more crime, especially if you're talking like Miami, if you're talking maybe, I'm trying to remember some of the other ones. I looked all these up as we were on that coast, but I just know the crime and the school ratings weren't quite as good as, let's say, a lot of the West Coast. I know Tampa has some really nice neighborhoods, low crime, good schools. Sarasota as a whole, the whole county pretty much, low crime, good schools. So you know, there's going to be some difference obviously from city to city on the Gulf and on the Atlantic, but as a whole, I would say a little safer and a little bit better schools on the Gulf Coast.
Another thing to note is that the Gulf Coast, it's more retiree friendly, I would say, and I think that's why it is safer.
Yeah.
Not that, you know, the Atlantic is not safe, but you have younger people, and with younger people it comes, you know, more of that party life, and it's just a different world out there.
Yeah.
And with that, you know, comes the crime as well.
Yeah, it's just a little, it feels a little more lively, a little more action, a little more of that city hustle and bustle. So again, it just comes back to that just overall much different feel. And again, I mean, not every city on the Atlantic is going to be that way. Not every city on the Gulf is going to be quiet, sleepy, and retirees. But as a general whole, that's kind of the vibe that we personally feel like each has.
Another thing I would like to mention, people here in Venice, Englewood, mainly on the Gulf Coast, I feel like are friendlier.
Yeah.
Than people on the Atlantic coast. We had a few experiences with people there, and it just feels like they don't want to be bothered, even if they're employees working. Like they just don't want you to bother them, and it's kind of sad that, you know, like you have to experience that. And I guess like I could see it because they probably get a lot of tourists. So they probably get fed up with, you know, like so many people asking questions, or like having to maybe serve if they're servers. But then at the same time, it's like maybe, you know, look for a different kind of job if you don't want to assist others, because it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, that makes me think of something kind of separate, but kind of also goes with that, I guess, in a way. But just as a whole, I'd say the Atlantic Coast just has a little more stuff to do. There's more like attractions and things to go check out, especially when you include Miami.
Yeah.
You know, there's more of that kind of stuff, more clubs, more, you know, again, for that younger crowd. West Coast, we definitely have some attractions, some things to do, but a lot of it is very you know, nature centric, I guess you could say, or outdoors based, you know,
It's more
being on
mellow.
the water.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not a little bit less stuff with like clubs and I don't know, you know, just.
And to be fair, we don't have a Miami on this coast or
Right.
near us. So Miami, I feel like it's what brings all of that livelihood to that area.
It has almost some of that, I would say, like almost kind of like that Los Angeles glitz and glamour and lifestyle to it. It's different, but there's some similarities. So with that being said, if you're looking to move to the far superior coast of the Gulf Coast, especially in the Venice, Sarasota, Inglewood area,
Northport, make sure to call, text, or email us. I am a local realtor here. My information will be in the description box below.
that phone number is 941-221-1897. You can call or text at any time. We're always going to have your best interest or happiness in mind when moving to the area. And I was just kidding about it being superior. to each their own. If you want to know more about living in any of the cities on the Gulf Coast area, we have playlists for all the ones we cover on this channel in the description down below. Hit the like button if you found the video helpful, subscribe and turn on all notifications, and
Live breezy.